Today, Watertown Police Chief Ed DeVoe and former Boston Police Commissioner Ed Davis testifying in Washington, D.C. on the marathon bombings, the manhunt, and the law enforcement response. Could things have been done differently? Joining me now, terrorism expert and managing partner of Protecting the Homeland Innovations, Todd McGhee. Todd, thanks for being here. We had a lot of conversations during that week from when the marathon bombings happened until the manhunt was finished. And now today, we're talking about it. We're talking about lessons learned. One of the big things coming out of that hearing today is something Congressman Bill Keating has been talking about for months now, really, about information sharing, what he calls a lack of information sharing from the FBI to local police. What could have been done better?
Mike, we're only as good as our last incident. We're only as smart and we're only as effective as our last incident. And we draw back to our benchmark of 9/11. And we saw the gaps. We saw the need for information sharing and the lack of information that was certainly relevant in that particular incident and event. In this particular case, it revealed itself again. In this particular case, it's protocol that agencies that are lead agencies on an investigation will keep that information close for obvious reasons, especially trying to establish a case potentially of evidentiary value. In this particular case, in a post-9/11 world, we do have the Joint Terrorism Task Force, and it would have been nice to have seen some of that information make its way at least down to an operational level to a multi-jurisdictional unit such as the Joint Terrorism Task Force to possibly be able to have a better handle on the Tsarnaev brothers in this particular case as everything unfolded.
And of course, just reminding people, this all comes about because the Russians had warned the U.S. government about Tamerlan Tsarnaev. But we go back to the FBI, and when these questions have been raised in the last few months, the FBI has said, look, we weren't hiding this information. Boston police had someone as part of this joint terrorism task force who could have access to it, yet we don't see the FBI there today. Congressman Keating certainly doesn't seem satisfied by the response from the FBI, but the FBI not admitting that they did anything wrong.
You know, in this particular case, the congressional hearing may extend itself. It may take a different direction and maybe try to ask some of the decision makers at the highest levels of our government as to where the gaps were, what happened, was information passed on. But we have to be mindful that from the Joint Terrorism Task Force all the way down to local and state government, there's other business going on, and if this was not put on radar as the Tsarnaev brothers as part of a focus of an investigation or someone locally that's been radicalized, you need that level of information to put something on radar to switch gears on a moment and be able to provide that information moving forward.
Always interesting to hear testimony and get details after the fact about what was going on, because we were talking during that week and trying to figure it out. I want to go back to that Wednesday after the bombing. There was word there was going to be a press conference. We learned today that, in fact, they had the pictures. They were potentially ready to go with them. Congress asking Ed Davis why they didn't go with the pictures that day, and he's saying, look, it was a decision made on a higher level than me. And then I think back to the day after that, Thursday, the president came to town, the president leaves, and then the pictures come out. So, given all that, do you think that perhaps they held off releasing those pictures because the president was coming to town the next day?
Difficult that the president would interfere with his presence, yet catastrophic event, global event for that matter, but very difficult to say that the president would get involved in an investigation or
not to get involved, but clearly a logistical nightmare,
right,
when
absolutely.
In the middle of this huge investigation, all of a sudden the president comes to town.
That's right. Could have been a weighed-in factor as far as the decision at the highest levels of our government. But that being said, that was a strategic decision. And I remember the speculation of the arrest, the mystery arrest that was going to happen at the courthouse that never happened. And that was all a part of that Wednesday afternoon, as we recall back, as we were reporting here on the story. But one of the key things that we have to remember is that decision being made ultimately paid off. The communities in the Watertown and surrounding communities went into lockdown, and as a result of that, again, we lost our brother, Officer Collier, right. Which is a tremendous loss on any level, whether it's civilian or public safety. But that decision played itself out, and shortly thereafter, the Tsarnaev brothers were captured.
And clearly a lot of good work done, but of course we ask questions to try to take a critical look. What can be learned? We talked about lessons after 9/11, and then we have this incident, and we talk about lessons here and talk about changes, but are we really going to see changes? Are we going to learn from this? We supposedly were going to learn about information sharing after 9/11.
Well, you know, the Harvard report does have discussions about cross-jurisdictional and cross-agency training. And the fact that, after 9/11, we learned about the need for incident command and the need for a national incident response and all these different aspects as we evolve and learn from these different critical incidents. But now, as we learn from another catastrophic event here within our Boston landscape here, the need to, again, take it up to the next level.
Right.
And from that aspect, I think we will evolve even further than what we already have.
Let's hope. Terrorism expert Todd McGhee, we appreciate the insight as always. Maria and Bill, over to you.
All right.